Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. There are playgrounds in England, Finland, Germany, and the US designed specifically for aging residents. They feature low-impact exercise equipment designed to promote balance and flexibility, such as elliptical machines, static bikes, and flexors. Starting on July 19, 2016, T-Mobile gave all of its customers a year of unlimited data to play Pokemon Go. They also offered 50% off mobile accessories such as portable power packs and more because so many people's phones were dying. In June of 2016, there was a massive theft of Twitter usernames and passwords involving nearly 33 million customers. According to the security company Leaked Source, over 120,000 people had used the password 123456. There's a sport called joggling where you jog and juggle at the same time. It was invented by a man named Bill Gadduz, who would juggle balls on a running track to increase his coordination when he realized that the pace of the 3-ball juggling pattern easily matched a wide range of running cadences. In Japan, there's a condition called hikikomori, where around 1 million people, mostly men, have locked themselves in their bedrooms for years, creating social and health problems. There's a replica of Noah's Ark in Williamstown, Kentucky. It was built by creationist ministry Answers in Genesis. It is exactly the dimensions specified in the book of Genesis at 450 feet long, 76 feet high, and 46 feet wide, and cost about $100 million to make. The Antarctic polar desert is the largest desert on Earth. It covers the continent of Antarctica and is the size of about 5.5 million square miles. The world's most expensive aquarium fish is the Asian arowana, also known as the dragonfish. It's believed by the Chinese to bring good luck and prosperity due to its red color and coin-like scales. This fish has sold for up to $300,000. Siberia has a population density of less than 8 people per 1 square mile. This is extra shocking considering that Siberia covers 77% of all of Russia and has an area of more than 50 times that of the UK, but yet has half the population. During the American Civil War, if you were drafted, you could actually pay someone $300 to go in your place. This was called commutation and was intended to raise money for the war effort, but was often heavily criticized that it was better at raising money than troops. Saltwater Brewery from Florida has partnered up with the ad agency We Believers to create fully edible 6-pack beer can packaging. It's made from byproducts of the brewing process like wheat and barley and is fully biodegradable and completely digestible. They are just as strong as the plastic ones, but if an animal or bird gets caught in one, they can actually snack on it and quickly decompose it. Most mammals don't live long past their reproductive years. Only a few that we know do, such as the killer whale, pilot whales, and possibly some great apes and human beings. And knowledge whales. Ooh. The national sport of Afghanistan is called buzkashi, where a headless carcass of a calf or goat is kept in the center of a field and 2 opposing teams on horseback try to get hold of the carcass and carry it to the goal area. The game can sometimes last for days. In the small town of El Val de Anton, Panama, there are trees growing that have square trunks. It's believed that this strange anomaly of nature doesn't occur anywhere else in the world. In fact, experts from the University of Florida took a few tree seedlings to see if they will retain their rectangular shape if planted elsewhere in the world, and they didn't when planted in other locations. In fact, the tree had normal circular trunks. In 1818, when Abraham Lincoln was 9, his mother Nancy died of a mysterious milk sickness that was sweeping across southern Indiana. It turned out the strange disease was due to drinking tainted milk from a cow that had ingested poisonous white snake root. Mary, Queen of Scots, became queen at only 6 days old. This is because her father died and she was his successor. In the 1930s, people lacking space in their London apartments used to utilize a baby cage for more space and for fresh air for their babies. It was a wire contraption that you hung out of your window. Yeah, that sounds safe. The word dinosaur comes from the ancient Greek words dinios, meaning fearfully great, as in awe-inspiring, and sauros, meaning lizard. The name was invented in 1842 by Richard Owen. The jaguar is the national animal of Brazil. Its scientific name is Panthera onca and is the largest carnivorous mammal in Central and South America, weighing up to 211 pounds. At the beginning of World War I, magician and escape artist Harry Houdini sold war bonds and taught American soldiers how to free themselves from German restraints. In 2013, scientists from the University of Chile spent a year designing a new vaccine that will give anyone who drinks even a small amount of alcohol an immediate, very bad hangover. They developed it to help tackle the problem of alcoholism in the country. The sloth only urinates and defecates once a week. Constipation is normal for them, and so when they do go, it's like giving birth. Their poop comes out looking like a long piece of rotten banana. Yeah, you're welcome for the visual. In North Korea, only military and government officials can own motor vehicles. Before there was modern refrigeration, people in Russia and Finland put Russian brown frogs in their milk to keep it fresh. According to Moscow State University organic chemist A.T. Lebedev, the frog's skin secretions are loaded with peptides and antimicrobial compounds. The blue whale has the highest percentage of body fat of any animal at more than 35%. With the whales weighing in at up to 180 tons, that's easily a record-breaking amount of fat for one animal. 5 high school students and their teacher from a small town in Sicily, Italy, created a prototype of a vending machine that turns your plastic recyclables into phone cases. It grinds down the plastics into tiny pellets, which are then melted and used to create 3D printed phone cases. The project was created to encourage other youths to recycle more. In Australia, there's a Christmas song where Santa's sleigh is pulled by 6 white kangaroos. Their names are Jackaroo, Curly, Bluey, 2-Up, Desert Head, and Snow. 80% of YouTube's views are from outside the United States. YouTube also exists in over 88 countries, and you can navigate the site in a total of 76 different languages, which covers about 95% of the internet's population. Retired NBA All-Star basketball player Yao Ming has his own winery in Napa Valley. Yao Family Wines opened in 2009 and makes ultra premium wines and is open from 10 to 5 for tastings. In late 2016, the world's second tallest building, the Shanghai Tower, built the world's fastest elevator. According to manufacturer Mitsubishi, the elevator moves as fast as 4,035 feet per minute. That's 46 miles per hour. Steven Tyler from the band Aerosmith's birth name was Stephen Victor Tallarico. The first woman in the United States to receive a medical degree was Elizabeth Blackwell back in 1849. Sushi is actually meant to be eaten with your hands and sashimi with chopsticks. The box jellyfish's venom is among the most deadly in the world. Human victims sometimes drown of heart failure from the pain and shock, and survivors can continue feeling considerable pain for weeks after. They also often have significant scarring where the tentacle made contact with their bodies. Flowers from bamboo are rarely seen. Some species can develop flowers after 65 to 120 years. But what's most fascinating is that if they do flower, all plants of that one bamboo species develop flowers at the same time, no matter where they're located in the world. Gasoline, kerosene, benzene, and turpentine all used to be used to cure head lice. References to it appear in medical journals as far back as 1917. Maryland's state sport is jousting. It became their official sport back in 1962 and has been held there ever since colonial times. Antarctica has no reptiles. Reptiles need heat to keep their bodies functioning, so they cannot survive in severe extended cold temperatures. They would literally freeze solid. There's an island in Brazil that is untouched by humans because it is covered in deadly snakes. The Ilha de Queimada Grande, or Snake Island, has up to 5 golden lancehead snakes per square meter. The golden lancehead is responsible for 90% of snake bite related fatalities in Brazil. The snakes are so dangerous that the Navy has forbidden anyone from landing there. There's an underwater museum off the coast of the Spanish island of Lanzarote called Museo Atlantico. It contains the sculptures of British artist Jason Dakar Taylor and depicts our changing and sometimes destructive role in the modern world. In Texas, it is against the law for anyone to have a pair of pliers in their possession. Praying mantises can turn their heads 180 degrees. They use this ability to scan their surroundings using 2 large compound eyes and 3 other simple eyes located between them. When minimum wage first became a law in the US back in 1938, it was 25 cents an hour, and if you adjust that for inflation, it would be $4.31 an hour today. New York's first St. Patrick's Day parade was held on March 17, 1762. On March 13, 1781, astronomer William Herschel discovered the planet Uranus. It was the first discovery to be made in modern times and also the first to be made using a telescope. On July 16, 1935, the world's first parking meter, known as the parkometer, was installed on the southeast corner of what was then First Street and Robinson Avenue in Oklahoma City. Panama hats are actually made in Ecuador, not Panama. In Tennessee, a law exists that prohibits the sale of bologna on a Sunday. Actor Tommy Lee Jones and Vice President Al Gore were freshman roommates at Harvard. Honeybees have 5 eyes, 2 compound eyes that help them see around themselves simultaneously, and 3 simple eyes that are positioned on the top of their heads that help with its orientation. In 2015, Croatia launched a program called Fresh Start, which wiped away debt for 60,000 low-income Croatians who had been struggling to pay their bills in an effort to boost consumer confidence and spending. The state, along with firms and banks, agreed to forgive up to 60,000 kuna, or $8,830 per individual. Most Americans are supposed to voluntarily declare and pay state tax on goods that have been bought online from out of state. Accountants and tax lawyers are some of the only people who actually pay it. After the Second World War, crystal meth was prescribed as a diet aid and remained legal right up until the 1970s. I lost like 10 pounds! In 1936, the founder of Adidas, in an attempt to market his shoes, drove to the Olympics and persuaded US sprinter Jesse Owens to wear them. Following Owens' win of 4 medals globally, letters came in from other national teams interested in buying their shoes. By World War II, they were selling 200,000 pairs a year. In 1932, Winston Churchill received a prescription for alcohol in order to get around the American prohibition. After being hit by a car in New York City, his doctor concluded that the solution to what ailed the future prime minister was nothing less than 6 shots of alcohol at every meal, although he was allowed to consume even more if he wanted to. Hundreds of thousands of books on Amazon have been written by bots. They include specialized technical and business reports, language dictionaries, and even crossword puzzle books for learning foreign languages. Philip M. Parker, a professor of marketing, created the computer system that can write these books in about 20 minutes. The Second Chance Coffee Company in Illinois conducts FBI background checks to make sure that those seeking employment with the company have actually been to prison because the company only hires ex-inmates. Rabbits eat their own poop every day. They produce special poop called cecotropes, or night feces, which are nutrient-rich and are passed out of the body like normal stool, but are a little different. They can later be re-ingested by the rabbit safely so that important nutrients can be reabsorbed. The menstrual pad, when it was first invented, used to be held up by a belt. NASA's internet speed is 91 gigabits per second, which is about 13,000 times faster than the average internet speed. For comparison, the average broadband connection speed in the United States is about 6.6 megabits per second. They're able to accomplish this because they operate on what's called a shadow network. It's like the internet, but only connects a few research facilities and organizations worldwide. A Cornell Food and Brand Lab study of 497 diners showed that patrons who ordered their dinner from a heavy server, ordered significantly more food, were 4 times more likely to order dessert, and ordered 17% more alcohol. In November of 2015, Nestle admitted that they used slave labor in the production of its Fancy Feast cat food brand in Thailand. Novice climbers are not allowed to climb Mount Everest, according to Joint Secretary of Nepal's Ministry of Tourism. In order to qualify to climb it, you are required to have reached the peak of at least one 6,500 meter mountain in your lifetime. Scientists have discovered that there are actually 5 tastes or senses that your tongue can recognize. They are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Parmesan cheese is an example of umami. From 2010 to 2015, Taco Bell secretly reduced the sodium content in 33 menu items by 33%, and nobody noticed. The Starbucks logo in Saudi Arabia is just a floating crown. This is because, believe it or not, the original logo featuring a mermaid is far too raunchy to be displayed in the deeply religious and conservative part of the world. Apple Computers was actually formed by 3 people, not 2. Ronald Wayne was the 3rd co-founder, but in less than a couple weeks, he pulled out of the company, and on April 12, 1976, Wayne sold his 10% equity in the company for $800. Today, that stake in the company would be worth $62.93 billion. Oh god, that just makes me sick. Phytophotodermatitis, often referred to as margarita dermatitis or Lyme disease, not to be confused with Lyme disease with a Y, is a toxic reaction resulting from citric acid mixed with sunlight. It can cause second-degree burns and is very painful. Because Alaska has as much as 20 hours of sunshine per day, they are able to grow gigantic produce, including 62 kilogram cabbages, 29 kilogram cantaloupes, and 16 kilogram broccoli. According to National Geographic, the Beelzebufo ampigna, or the devil frog, may be the largest frog that ever existed. These extinct beach ball-sized amphibians grew to almost half a meter long and weighed approximately 4.5 kilograms. On March 26, 1976, Queen Elizabeth sent her first email. The message was transmitted over ARPANET, the forerunner for the modern internet. She is considered the first head of state to have used electronic mail. In the late 1990s, the Coca-Cola Company began testing a vending machine that could automatically raise prices for its drinks in hot weather. Recycling one aluminum can saves enough energy to run a television for 3 hours. The opposite of déjà vu is jamais vu. It's a French word meaning never seen. It's a feeling or experience when a person knows or recognizes a situation, but still feels very unfamiliar and unknown to them. The fear of clowns is called coulrophobia and has increased significantly over the last 20 years due to their portrayal in popular culture and the recent scary clown phenomenon where people have been dressing up as clowns to scare others. The blue whale is one of the loudest animals on the planet. They emit a series of pulses, groans, and moans, and in good conditions can be heard up to 1,600 kilometers away. According to Guinness World Records, the largest female afro measures 18.5 centimeters high, 19.6 centimeters wide, and 132.1 centimeters in circumference, and was achieved by Avon Douglas in New Orleans on October 4th, 2010. Yeah, I'm working on getting that record too. According to new research published in the Journal of Computers and Human Behavior, the act of phubbing or phone snubbing is a very real epidemic in the United States. Phubbing is the act of snubbing someone in a social situation by looking down at your phone instead of paying attention to them, and can damage your relationships and even lead to severe depression and lower rates of life satisfaction. If your parents or grandparents have a history of multiple cavities or dentures at an early age, you have a higher risk of the same thing due to genetics. Frogs can't swallow with their eyes open. The sea anemone looks like a beautiful flower, but is really a sea creature that uses venom-laden tentacles to stab passing victims with paralyzing neurotoxin, rendering them helpless. The word probably, the informal pronunciation of probably, originated in the 1940s. Unlike other planets that take their names from Greek mythology, Uranus's moons are named after characters in Shakespeare's plays. These include Umbriel, Cordelia, and Ariel. In rural China, hiring strippers to perform at funerals was a common practice in order to attract mourners. It wasn't until 2015 that it was finally banned. Thousands of microscopic mites live on your face right now. There are 2 species, Demodex follicularum, that reside in your pores and hair follicles, and D. brevis that settle deeper in the oily sebaceous glands of your face. An average elephant can hold and store 4 liters of water in its trunk. Large dogs age faster and die younger than small dogs, and scientists are still uncertain why this is. Dinosaurs often used to swallow large rocks. These rocks stayed in their stomach and helped them grind up food. The indigenous Sami people of Norway have a tradition of castrating reindeer with their teeth. Military commandos in Lebanon eat live snakes, a tradition that displays their strength and daring. Thousands of condoms were issued to soldiers for D-Day. Most of them were used to keep their rifles dry. Snow monkeys in Japan entertain themselves by making snowballs. Russian criminals used to get tattoos bearing the images of Lenin and Stalin because it was a commonly held belief that communist firing squads were not permitted to shoot at an image of their leaders. Gabe Balfour of Cortez, Colorado, built the doggone vacuum truck. It's used to suck prairie dogs out of their burrows. Territora tumors can grow hair, teeth, organs, and limbs, and scientists have no idea why they form. Okay, that's just nasty. The average person blinks about 12 times per minute. That's about 10,000 blinks on average per day. P.S. You are now manually blinking. Yes, you are aware that you are blinking. It's annoying, I know. A kitchen faucet would need to be turned on all the way for at least 45 years to equal the amount of blood pumped by the heart in the average lifetime. The University of Southern Queensland found that facial hair can block up to 95% of the sun's harmful UV rays. That goes a long way in protecting you from cancer. Look at that. Look at so much protection. An ostrich's powerful long legs can cover 3 to 5 meters in a single stride. Their legs can also be formidable weapons. In fact, an ostrich's kick can kill a human or a potential predator like a lion. The deepest lake in the world is Lake Baikal in Siberia. It's over 1,641 meters deep and is also the most voluminous freshwater lake on Earth, containing nearly 20% of the world's unfrozen fresh water. In 2012, the street artist Megs converted an old bridge in Wuppertal, Germany into a giant Lego structure using colored panels to create the illusion of the underside of Lego bricks. In most European countries, including Britain, declawing your cat is illegal. If you're caught declawing a cat in Israel, you can actually be sent to jail for a year and be fined $20,000. Scotland, Italy, New Zealand, and over 30 other countries have also followed suit. In New Zealand, it's illegal to own just one guinea pig because they are very lonely and social creatures. In fact, they have matchmaking companies to match up your guinea pig if their partner dies, which is part of a sweeping animals' rights legislation that was first introduced in 2008. If you live in Australia, you're 20 times more likely to drown than be bitten by a shark. In fact, to put it into perspective, you're significantly more likely to win the top prize in the lottery than even being involved in a shark accident of any kind. Humans are friends, not food. According to the World Health Organization, there are 360 million people in the world with disabling hearing loss. That's around 5% of the entire world's population. 32 million of them are children between the ages of 0 and 14. Luckily, things like captions exist, just like on this video. On July 13th, 1955, nightclub owner Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be executed for murder in Great Britain. She was hanged for killing her boyfriend, and it wasn't until 1965 that the death penalty for murder was banned in England, Scotland, and Wales. A study in the Journal of Current Biology found that those people who exercise 4 hours after learning something new retained the information better 2 days later than those who exercised immediately or not at all. The reason that tires are black and not another color is because of the chemical that's added to the tires called carbon black. It's added to protect tires against ozone and UV damage, and it drastically prolongs the life of any tire, which is why all tire manufacturers use it. Researchers from the UK's Manchester Metropolitan University found that mice don't really like cheese as much as we think. They much more prefer fruit and grains. The rumor of them liking cheese so much was spread via pop culture and cartoons. Summer on the planet Uranus lasts 42 years long, followed by 42 years of winter. It's Earth's tilt that gives us our seasons, but Uranus's is significantly more on its side in relation to its poles, hence the length of its seasons. There's a place in Arizona called the Boneyard that is the final resting place of about 3,000 military aircraft, some of them up to 60 years old. They literally just sit there and are gradually harvested for spare parts over time. There's a very rare illness called Klein-Levin syndrome, or sleep sleeping beauty syndrome, where those affected sleep for up to 20 hours per day for days, weeks, or even months at a time, only waking to use the washroom or eat. Flamingos are pink because the algae and crustaceans like shrimp and prawns that they eat contain pigments called carotenoids. Their liver breaks down the carotenoids into pink and orange pigment molecules that get deposited in their feathers, bill, and legs. You can actually reshape some babies' ears. Some of them have a condition called liddling, where the top part of the cartilage in the ear is basically folded over so the top ridge is kind of rounded over. However, there's actually a mold called earwell that can change the shape of your baby's ear in approximately 6 weeks. There are more bicycles than people in Copenhagen and 5 times as many bicycles as cars. Over 50% of city dwellers commute by bicycle, and over 41% arrive at their place of work or study by bike. Monkey brains are considered a delicacy in parts of South Asia, Africa, and China. They're considered an easily digestible substance, often given to invalids and children, and there are even entire cookbooks dedicated on how to cook them. It takes Pluto 241 years to orbit the sun. That's because Pluto orbits at an average distance of 3.7 billion miles from the sun, while Earth only orbits at 93 million miles. Octopuses will actually break off a limb as part of a fight to impress a mate or to get away from a predator. They will also eat their own arms once in a while, which some scientists believe may be due to a disease of some sort. The 7 rays on the Statue of Liberty's crown stand for each of the 7 continents. They each measure 9 feet long and weigh as much as 150 pounds. In addition, its overall height is 305 feet from its base and has a 35-foot waistline and weighs 225 tons. Cuba has a 99.8% literacy rate, one of the highest in the whole world. When flying in a flock, flamingos can fly as fast as 35 miles per hour. They may seem clumsy in flight, however, because their long necks stretch out in front of their bodies and their long legs dangle well past their short tails. The first electric traffic light was installed on August 5th, 1914 on the corner of Euclid Avenue and East 105th Street in Cleveland, Ohio. Based on the design by James Hodge, who received a US patent for his municipal traffic control system, it consisted of 4 pairs of red and green lights that served as stop and go indicators, each mounted on a corner post. In California, there's a law that prohibits a vehicle without a driver to exceed 60 miles per hour. Companies like Google, who make autonomous cars, have the technology to make them go much faster, but must limit them based on this law. On September 13th, 1916, the town of Irwin, Tennessee, hung an elephant nicknamed Murderous Mary because she mauled one of her keepers to death. It required a massive crane to accomplish and was done because hangings and lynchings were a popular form of justice at the time. The automotive industry used to use sperm whale oil to lubricate new cars. In fact, the stuff works so well that huge mammals were actually hunted almost to extinction, so the US declared sperm whales an endangered species and switched to the new whale-free automatic transmission fluid. Believe it or not, you can determine the temperature outside by counting the chirps made by crickets. According to the Farmer's Almanac, to convert cricket chirps to Celsius, you count the number of chirps in 25 seconds, divide by 3, then add 4 to get the temperature. The 31st president of the United States, Herbert Hoover, spent none of his salary on himself and instead gave it away to charities or as income supplements to his associates. There's something called a moonbow or lunar rainbow that's a rainbow that can be seen at night and happens very rarely. In order for this to happen, a full moon is needed, it must be raining opposite to the moon, the sky must be dark, and the moon must be less than 42 degrees high. There's a law in Pacific Grove, California that prohibits the molesting of monarch butterflies. Seriously. Ordinance 11.48.010 states that it is declared to be unlawful for any person to molest or interfere with in any way the peaceful occupancy of the monarch butterfly on their annual visit to the city of Pacific Grove, and goes on like that for several more sentences. The longest solar eclipse in the 21st century lasted 6 minutes and 39 seconds, and it won't be surpassed in duration until the eclipse of June 13th, 2132. Venus and Uranus are the only planets that rotate clockwise. The other 6 planets in the solar system rotate counterclockwise. Lobsters are able to to regenerate lost eyes, claws, and antennae. You can also determine the gender of a lobster by looking at its swimmerets, the small feathery appendages on the underside of its tail. The first pair of swimmerets closest to the body are hard and bony on a male and soft and feathery on a female. It is illegal in Mobile, Alabama to possess confetti. It's also illegal to store, use, manufacture, sell, offer for sale, give away, or even handle confetti. Pope Francis broke a record when he hit 1 million Instagram followers within 12 hours of starting the account. The previous record was set by David Beckham at 1 million within 24 hours. He christened the account on a Saturday with a photo of him kneeling in prayer with an accompanying message that said "Pray for me" in 9 languages. Before Samuel L. Jackson became a movie star, he was Bill Cosby's camera stand-in on The Cosby Show. Gonna touch your butt with some Jell-O pudding. Leonardo da Vinci was dyslexic. Also, strangely, not because of his dyslexia, he chose to write all of his notes to himself backwards in mirror writing, meaning that you can only read them in the reflection of a mirror. However, notes that he wrote to other people, he wrote in a normal direction. In Albania, nodding your head means no and shaking your head means yes. A human taste bud has an average lifespan of 7 to 10 days. Taste bud cells undergo continual turnover even into adulthood, but taste buds in rats last from 2 days to over 3 weeks. There were 13 couples celebrating their honeymoon on the Titanic. However, none of them survived upon impact and the subsequent sinking of the boat. Dogs love the herb anise the same way that cats love catnip. In fact, anise is the scent on the artificial rabbit that is used in greyhound races to get the dogs to run. The hardest bone in the human body is the jawbone. Also known as the mandible, it's also the largest and strongest bone in the human face. Believe it or not, you consume 1/10 of a calorie by licking a US stamp, but if you were to lick a stamp in Britain, it's 5.9 calories per lick, and the adhesive on a larger commemorative or special British stamp contains a whopping 14.5 calories. Camels actually have 3 eyelids to protect their eyes from blowing sand. The upper and lower eyelids have eyelashes. However, there's a third one that's a thin membrane that they can see through even in a sandstorm. On July 5th, 1996, the first mammal ever was successfully cloned. Dolly the sheep was cloned from an adult cell at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. She was named after Dolly Parton because she was cloned from a mammary cell. Well, at least that's a better name than her codename 6LL3. Doesn't ring the same bell. Mosquitoes can detect carbon dioxide from 75 feet away. In fact, that's how they find their victims, specifically you. A galactic year, also known as a cosmic year, is the duration of a complete rotation of the Milky Way, which is approximately 200 million terrestrial years. The human aorta is the largest artery in the human body and is about the size of a garden hose. There's a dog breed called Basenji that doesn't have the ability to bark. It can produce a yodeling howl sound though. It's a small to medium-sized, square-shaped animal that is believed to be bred intentionally without the ability to bark. Gatorade was named after the Florida Gators. In 1965, a team of university physicians in Florida were approached by a University of Florida's assistant football coach because he wanted to find out why his players were being affected by the heat and heat-related illnesses. They ended up creating the drink Gatorade that balanced carbohydrates and electrolytes. The first ever video to air on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles on August 1st, 1981. That was over 36 years ago, and in fact, the very first original broadcast is on YouTube right now. There's afros and neon lights everywhere, I warn you. Famous author Ernest Hemingway survived a series of misfortunes such as malaria, skin cancer, anthrax, hepatitis, dysentery, a ruptured kidney, a ruptured liver, a ruptured spleen, pneumonia, a crushed vertebrae, and a fractured skull, and not just all of that, but 2 plane crashes. Out of the top 30 fastest 100-meter sprints in Olympic history, only 9 of them were clean of doping, and they all belong to Usain Bolt. The last time that all living humans were on Earth at the same time was November 2nd, 2000. Since then, the International Space Station has been continuously occupied. dioxide. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson travels to all of his film sets with a private gym of over 18,000 kilograms of equipment that takes over 100 people to assemble. A man named Ludger Silberis got into a bar fight and was thrown into solitary confinement before a massive volcano eruption devastated the city of St. Pierre. However, because he was so heavily sheltered, Ludger was one of only 3 survivors after the eruption, and his prison cell still stands today. According to Dr. Martin Bensick from Nottingham Trent University, when honeybees bump into each other, they send out a vibration that sounds like a whoop, and scientists believe that this sound is the result of the bees getting startled. In 1926, Poland sent the United States a birthday card with over 5 million signatures. Male platypuses are one of the few living mammals that are venomous, and apparently the pain is excruciating. During the breeding season, they secrete the venom from spurs on their hind limbs. Painkillers are useless, and the after effects are long-lasting, but it's not lethal to humans. Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons was supposed to be Homer Simpson in disguise, because the joke was that Bart hated Homer but loved Krusty. Crows in Japan have mastered a technique to crack nuts by dropping them in the street and retrieving them after passing cars run them over. We are living closer to the time that The Jetsons was set, which was 2062, than when it first aired in 1962. According to Heinrich Frank, a professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, prehistoric giant sloths in South America excavated hundreds of kilometers of tunnels that still exist today. Teachers in Luxembourg are the best paid teachers in the world, with a starting salary of just under $80,000 US and can earn up to $138,000 a year. The last letter that George Harrison of the Beatles ever wrote was to actor Mike Myers, telling him how much he enjoyed the movie Austin Powers. The only human that is buried on the moon is planetary scientist Eugene Shoemaker, who died in 1997. On January 6, 1998, the lunar prospector for NASA was heading to the south pole of the moon, looking for ice, and carried an ounce of Shoemaker's ashes with him. Then, on July 1st, 1999, the spacecraft intentionally crashed into the surface of the moon and made Shoemaker the first off-world burial. Body odor and bad personal hygiene became such a big issue at Super Smash Bros. Tournaments that participants would be disqualified if they stank. They would even go so far as to hand out deodorant to players. Ugh. According to the National Park Service, George Washington had a biracial family after his adopted son named Park Custis fathered children with their slaves. In addition to fathering these children, he was also the father-in-law to Robert E. Lee. Workers at 3M adhesive tape plant in South Carolina discovered an invisible wall of static electricity that was so strong that you couldn't pass through it. When movie star Liam Neeson was a school teacher, he punched one of his students in the face for threatening him with a knife. "I have many skills. I'll find you and punch you in the face." In 1986, Lake Nyos in Cameroon experienced an eruption of carbon dioxide that shot 100 meters into the air, creating a cloud. When the cloud settled onto the ground, it killed over 1,000 people and over 3,000 livestock. According to scholars, the @ symbol was invented by monks hundreds of years ago. At least 2,800 Sikhs were murdered from October 31st to November 3rd in 1984 during the anti-Sikh riots. Some sources actually believe that the number of deaths were closer to 8,000, with at least 3,000 in Delhi. The drug company Bayer infected thousands of people with HIV after selling them contaminated blood clotting medicine. Henry Cavill was the final choice to play James Bond in Casino Royale, but the producers wanted an older Bond and eventually gave the role to Daniel Craig. Astronomers discovered an asteroid that turned out to be the third stage of the Apollo 12 spacecraft and it was circling the sun for 30 years. In the early 2000s, the object called J002E3 wandered too close to Earth and was pulled into the Hill sphere, which is the strongest source of gravitational force nearby that is not the sun. Retired NBA star Yao Ming's shark conservation campaigns have led to a 50% decrease in the killing of sharks for their fins. Different surveys now show that around 91% of Chinese people support the ban of shark fin consumption. 27 commoners in ancient Rome would sometimes evacuate an entire city, which was called the cessation of the plebs, and leave the elites to take care of themselves. Charles Herbert Lightroller was an officer serving on the Titanic when it sank and became trapped underwater. It wasn't until one of the boilers exploded that he was sent back up to the surface. Later in his life, he also rescued 130 men from Dunkirk in World War II. Animal shelters in Germany are all no-kill shelters because it's against the law to kill vertebrates without a proper reason. Grand Theft Auto 5 made $1 billion during the first 72 hours of sale, which is the fastest piece of entertainment property ever sold. The famous inventor Leonardo da Vinci actually made a robot with an exterior made of German-Italian medieval armor and inner workings around the year 1500. The robot was able to sit, stand, and raise its visor, as well as being able to move its arms. The journal Science published a study saying that anywhere from 10 to 30% of water on Earth is older than the sun, and that our bodies contain some of that water. 50 to 80% of California's wildfire firefighters are inmates who get paid less than $2 an hour. Over 10,000 people died when the US government added poisonous chemicals to industrial-grade alcohol during the Prohibition in an attempt to stop people from stealing and distilling it. Apparently that didn't work, dabba-dee-dabba-doo. The last time the United States officially declared war was with Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary in 1942. Cranial deformation used to be practiced all over the world among different cultures for many centuries and predates written history. The Greek physician Hippocrates, who is considered the father of medicine, wrote the earliest written record of cranial deformation. The official legal name for Mexico is the United Mexican States and is still used in their government today. The Dalmatian was used in the fire service to keep the horses calm and also to protect the equipment and carriage during a fire. The Harlem Globetrotters have held a draft since 2007 that takes place a few days before the NBA draft and have drafted people such as Gal Gadot, Tim Tebow, and Usain Bolt. Of course, none of those picks have ever joined the team or played. Japanese scientists successfully created and bred fluorescent monkeys so that they could help to understand curing diseases better. Because of these experiments, the researchers received backlash from different ethics groups. The game of chess contains more possible moves than there are particles in the known universe. Each move opens up around 38 legal moves, and a match consists of around 40 moves per player, which means the total number of moves is equal to 10 to the power of 126. This also means that we have still not figured out all of the possible moves in chess. Vikings sailed to and made settlements in North America during the 11th century and grew wild grapes, fished for salmon, and made canoes out of animal hides. In 1961, a bomber flying over North Carolina crashed and broke up with 2 powerful hydrogen bombs that were riding with it, killing 3 of the 8 crew members. Before the aircraft crashed, it dropped the 2 bombs and they never detonated. A cleanup crew found all of the remains of the first bomb but couldn't locate a portion of the second. The chocolate company Mars named the Snickers bar after their favorite family horse. In the last 100 years, the Manhattan skyline has grown over 300 meters and is still growing with more planned buildings. The US federal government owns a single marijuana farm on the campus of the University of Mississippi Mississippi. The Statue of Liberty stands next to a broken chain and shackle that is hidden by her robes to symbolize the abolishment of slavery. Australian musician Nick Cave wrote a sequel to the 2000 blockbuster film Gladiator that was about the main character Maximus trying to kill a rogue god in the afterlife and coming back from the dead to lead a revolt. A Gladiator sequel is actually in the works now, according to filmmaker Ridley Scott, but will not be about that. Are you not entertained? The popular cartoon show Ed, Edd and Eddy was the last major show to use traditional animation before the introduction of CGI in other shows. Before July 10th, 2015, new music was released on Tuesdays because of the shipping in the pre-digital era. Since then, they have been released on Friday. There are an estimated 2 million saunas in Finland, even though the population of the country is at 5.3 million. This basically means that every person in Finland at whatever time can go to their favorite sauna. Broadcaster and national historian Sir David Attenborough is the only person to have won British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards for programs in each of black and white, color, HD, 3D, and 4K. The Andromeda Galaxy is so massive that if it were brighter and we could see it, then it would look bigger than the moon to us. For reference, the moon is only 400,000 kilometers away from us, but the Andromeda Galaxy is 25 quintillion kilometers or 2.5 million light years away from us. Sunsets on Mars are blue instead of red because the heavy dust particles block out most of the sun's light. However, the blue light pushes through the atmosphere better than the red or yellow colors and is much more visible. Apples that are sold in stores in the United States can be up to 1 year old. In 2004, a bus that was transporting the Dave Matthews Band in Chicago dumped 362 kilograms of waste off of the bridge and into a river, but it splashed onto a boat full of sightseers. What a lovely day! The driver was sentenced to 18 months of probation, 150 hours of community service, and $10,000 in fine. The Spanish basketball team for the 2000 Sydney Paralympic Games were stripped of their gold medals after it was revealed that 10 out of their 12 players were not disabled. Researcher James Gilpin started a project where he takes the sugar from the urine of elderly people with diabetes and uses it to make whiskey. He then bottles the whiskey with the name and age of the person who donated. Nicholas Stephen Waddle was born on September 9th, 1999 at 9:09 a.m. The baby also weighed in at 9 pounds 9 ounces. In July of 2018, 3 thieves stole a horn shark from an aquarium in San Antonio and disguised it as a baby before putting it in a stroller and wheeling it out. 2 of the thieves confessed to the police and were charged. Don't mind me, I'm just a little baby. Sharks always have English accents, I don't know why. A 30-year-old woman named Autumn Erhard won the top prize of $1 million on Wheel of Fortune during the show's 30th anniversary theme that week. The episode aired on May 30th. The Byzantine Empire would use an incendiary weapon during naval warfare called Greek fire that was first developed around 672 AD. Fire was so effective because it was capable of floating on the surface of the water to burn other ships. The formula was a heavily guarded secret, and we still do not know to this day how it was made. UPS drivers have a specific route that they must follow that includes never turning left. Although it might sometimes take longer to get to their destination, it reduces the chance of an accident and actually saves fuel. The KKK sent singer Johnny Cash death threats because they saw a picture of him with his first wife, who the hate group thought was black. It turned out that she was just an Italian-American woman. The ancient Mayans thought turkeys were a symbol of power and worshipped them like gods around 300 BC when they were at the height of their civilization. They believed that they had supernatural abilities and were in turn exclusively owned by the most rich and powerful people. Ella Slack has been the body double for Queen Elizabeth for 30 years and takes the place of the Queen during rehearsals for large events. Author J.I. Rodale died during the taping of the Dick Cavett Show on June 8, 1971, at the age of 72. Before he died, he told Cavett that he was in such good health that he fell down a flight of stairs and laughed the whole way down. He also said that he was going to live to 100. Obviously, that didn't happen. There was a fake prison in South Korea that stressed out business people and students check themselves into in order to relax and find relief. They're not allowed to have mobile phones or clocks and are also not allowed to talk to other inmates. Their menu is rice porridge for breakfast and a steamed sweet potato with a banana milkshake for dinner. I mean, I would go there. That sounds good. According to Vox, astronaut ice cream has always been a myth, and they have never eaten it in space. It was used as a marketing ploy to influence the young and impressionable. John Johnson was a mountain man in the 1800s who went by the nickname Liver-Eating Johnson because he ate the livers of about 300 Crow Indians, according to the historian Andrew Mahane Sutherland. He did this out of revenge for the murder of his wife, who was from the Flathead American Indian tribe. The consumption of their livers was considered an insult to the Crow because they believed that they were important for the afterlife. After making peace with the tribe eventually, John died at the age of 75 in Santa Monica, California in 1900. The Congo River is the only river in the world that crosses the equator twice by flowing north and south of it. It's also the only major river in the world that crosses the equator even once. Wild parrots have been spreading and seen throughout Phoenix, Arizona for years. According to conservationist Greg Clark, these colonies were started in the 1980s when an aviary set loose 100 birds after a monsoon. He said another aviary released more birds around that time because the owner didn't want them anymore. And then they just started, you know. There is a language in the mountains of the Canary Islands that consists of whistling and has been used for centuries. The language is called Silbo-Gamero, and it's used by transferring Spanish into whistling sounds. That makes the messages travel further and louder than if you were to yell. Retired NFL safety Troy Polamalu had a minor speaking role in the 2015 Disney film Moana. Muggsy Bogues holds the record for the shortest NBA player of all time at 5 feet 3 inches. According to Martin Banks, who's a scientist at the University of California, Berkeley, animals with vertical slits as pupils are likely to be an ambush predator. He says that these animals need to correctly judge the distance between them and their prey, and having vertical slits optimizes that ability. Stephen Hillenberg was a marine biology instructor at the Orange County Marine Institute who wrote a comic book about tide pool animals called the Intertidal Zone. 2 years after pursuing a career in animation, he developed the characters from his comic book and turned them into the show SpongeBob SquarePants. Oh, Mr. Krabs. Steve Jobs would frequently eat at his biological father's Mediterranean restaurant in San Jose, California, without ever knowing that the owner was his father. They even met a few times. In 2005, a man with a PhD in glass science named Don McPherson was playing ultimate frisbee in Santa Cruz, California one day when his friend asked him if he could wear sunglasses that he made himself. The friend immediately told him that he was no longer colorblind. According to William A. Hiscock from Montana State University, if you were in a spaceship that continually accelerated at 1G and traveled to the center of our galaxy and back, then it would only take 40 years. However, when you came back, 60,000 years will have passed on Earth, even though 40 years have passed for you. This means that you can technically go into the future. In 2027, the autopsy report for Elvis Presley will be unsealed for the first time, 50 years after the rock star's death. The dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg was an outbreak of manic dancing that consisted of 400 people who were mostly women. Over the course of 1 month, 15 people a day died from heart attacks and exhaustion. English novelist Jane Austen is buried at Winchester Cathedral in England, along with the former kings that date back as far as 611 AD. According to The Outline, the former CEO of the popular virtual website Neopets was a Scientologist who used the org board method for his company. This method was designed by Scientology creator L. Ron Hubbard and made it the business model for his followers. Play-Doh was originally manufactured by Kroger Grocery to be a product that could clean coal residue from wallpaper. Trigeminal neuralgia is a neuropathic disorder that's classified as having episodes of intense pain in the face that comes from the trigeminal nerve. The pain is so intense and excruciating that the disorder is referred to as suicide disease. Wealthy landowners in Britain during the 18th century would hire hermits to live on their land for aesthetic purposes. These hermits would only live on their estate and think about their existence while providing wisdom with visitors. One ad that was looking for a hermit, however, demanded that they could not talk to anyone, cut their hair, or even leave the estate. A large portion of the scary sounds that you hear in thriller and horror movies comes from an instrument called the water phone. Beef carcasses are given electrical stimulation before they are slaughtered and skinned to prevent rigor mortis. Scientists are developing a device that can translate the vocalizations of animals into something that we can understand by using artificial intelligence. They've been studying and gathering data from prairie dogs for 30 years and discovered that they have their own language system. Women in the Victorian era would treat dead birds with arsenic and place them on top of their hats for decoration. Some of these hats are on display today in museums and still have traces of arsenic on them, so employees have to handle them with care. Italian surgeon Sergio Canavero is attempting to successfully give a head transplant to a breathing human soon that will take 36 hours to complete and will require 150 doctors and nurses. However, according to Christopher Hooton at The Independent, one of the things that could happen to someone if they did successfully receive a head transplant is they could go insane. Babies have over 60 more bones in their bodies than adults. The electricity that is made from the human brain is enough to power a small LED light bulb. When the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree in New York is taken down each year, it's used as lumber for Habitat for Humanity. An adult gray wolf is capable of eating over 10 kilograms of meat in one sitting. That's a whole lot of you. Sumo wrestlers in Japan used to get silicone implants on top of their heads to pass the height requirements of 5 feet 8 inches. The chainsaw was originally designed to assist with giving birth by cesarean section and not for cutting wood. The ancient Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II lived to be either 92 or 96 years old and outlived many of his older sons. Scientists also found that through CT scans that Ramses II had red hair as well as arthritis in his hip and gum disease. On October 2nd, 1954, Elvis Presley made his first and last Grand Ole Opry appearance. Apparently, his gyration-filled performance was not received well, and one of the officials there reportedly told him to not quit his day job, which was driving trucks. Actor Brad Pitt's first acting job was playing a chicken. Yep, he wore a chicken suit to attract customers to an El Pollo Loco restaurant in Hollywood. Today, the 53-year-old actor has been in more than 70 movies, won an Academy Award out of 5 nominations, and more. American sprinter Forrest Smithson won a gold medal in the 110-meter hurdles in the 1908 Olympics, but what was really astonishing about it is that he was carrying a Bible in his hand. The common rumor is that he did this to protest against the decision to run the finals on Sundays. However, the truth is, he was so religious that he often ran with a Bible. While editing his biggest movie, The Titanic, director James Cameron taped a razor blade to the side of the computer with instructions that says use only if the film sucks. But he didn't need to worry very much because the film went on to gross a total of $1.84 billion worldwide. In 2008, a 57-year-old Chicago school bus driver and amateur artist, Steve Kushner, changed his name legally to In God We Trust. He did this because it symbolizes the help that God gave him during tough times. But I don't think he thought it through very much. I mean, I feel like having your first name as In God would make for some awkward social situations. Yo, In God, what up? An underground fire in the coal mines beneath Centralia, Pennsylvania has been burning since 1962. Astonishingly, nobody knows how the fire even started, but one theory is that burning trash from a nearby landfill accidentally ignited coal beneath the old entrance to the mine. From there, the fire spread wildly through all the mines. The world's longest yard sale, known as the 127 sale, occurred between August 4th and 7th of 2016 and extended over 1,000 kilometers throughout 4 states. People selling goods lined the roadside along the US Highway 127 and the Lookout Mountain Parkway all the way through Covington, Kentucky, Gadsden, and Alabama. At the 2000 2008 Olympics in Beijing, China, visitors could buy seahorse kebabs and deep-fried scorpion. And if that wasn't weird enough, it's estimated that up to 40,000 restaurants ended up adding crazy twist menu items such as this. According to Dr. Scott Pitnick at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, the tiny fruit fly Drosophila bifurca develops huge testicles that make up almost 11% of its body weight in order to produce giant sperm. They can produce sperm that are more than 20 times the size of their own bodies. What? That's disturbing. Ellen Church was the first female flight attendant who began flying in 1930. She implemented a plan that required all flight attendants to be registered nurses, which was a great idea, except when World War II began, all of the nurses enlisted in the war, so most airlines were forced to drop the requirement in order to find any workers. The burger with the most calories in the world can be found at the Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas. According to the owner, John Basso, the octuple bypass burger is 20,000 calories. The restaurant ended up making national headlines for literally killing its customers, so fittingly, the waitresses are all dressed as nurses. There was an ancient Chinese custom where girls would have their toes and arches broken, tied and bound underneath their feet before the arch of the foot could develop. This was done so that their feet could fit into tiny little shoes. Back then, small feet in China represented the height of female refinement. There is a phobia called compunophobia where sufferers have a paralyzing fear of buttons. The specific fear varies from person to person, but some people feel that buttons are dirty and some are afraid of the texture of certain buttons. According to the US Department of Treasury law, portraits of living persons are prohibited from appearing on government securities like money. This is why you never see living presidents on dollar bills. In addition, the portraits have to be of deceased people whose places in history are well known by the American people. A woman named Vesna Vulovic from Yugoslavia holds the Guinness World Record for the highest fall survived without a parachute. On January 26, 1972, she was working as a flight attendant when she fell over 10,000 meters over the Czech Republic. Unbelievably, the plane that she was working aboard blew up and she fell inside a section of the tail unit. After being in the hospital for 16 months and emerging from a 27-day coma, she had multiple broken bones but miraculously survived. Ontario, Canada has more than 250,000 lakes and contains about 1/5 of the entire world's fresh water. It was also the place that I was raised. Well, in Ontario represent? NASA scientists have discovered that about 4.3 billion years ago, Mars may have had enough water to cover its entire surface in a liquid layer about 137 meters deep. This primitive ocean would have held more water than the Arctic Ocean. However, over time, it lost about 87% of that water into space. Researchers from the French Université Libre de Bruxelles found that cockroaches have their own personalities and even display different character traits. They are simple animals, but they can make complex decisions on survival, and one cockroach's decision can actually sway another's. Japan has the highest life expectancy in the world at almost 84 years on average. This is mostly due to Okinawa Island, which is known for having some of the longest living people in the entire world. In fact, there are 34 centenarians per 100,000 people, which is more than 3 times the rate of mainland Japan. In 2008, a man named Ian Usher from Perth, Australia, sold his entire life on eBay for $399,000 following the breakdown of his marriage. The sale price included his home, his car, his motorcycle, a 2-week trial in his job, and an introduction to his friends. For 5 years, a woman named Oksana Malaya from the Ukraine lived with dogs and survived on raw meat and scraps. She walked on all fours, panted with her tongue hanging out, and whined and even barked. After she was abandoned by her alcoholic parents, she was actually raised by a pack of dogs on a rundown farm in the village of Novaya. When she was finally discovered in 1991, she had almost forgotten how to speak. Naples, Italy has set a world record for producing the world's longest pizza. It measures, prepare yourself, about 1,854 meters long and took about 100 chefs 11 hours to make. It took 2,000 kilograms of flour, 1,600 kilograms of tomatoes, 2,000 kilograms of cheese, and 200 liters of olive oil just to make it. The esophagus of a leatherback sea turtle is lined with papillae, sharp prongs that enable the turtle to dine on jellyfish. And you thought turtles were cute. On May 17th, 2016, a woman named Mary Ann Noland had her obituary published in the Richmond Times, which stated that faced with the prospect of voting for either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, she literally chose to die. Yeah, I think more than a few people felt that way, you know what I'm saying? Budweiser changed its name to America for the summer of 2016. Yes, it literally changed the labels on all bottles and cans with images and phrases affiliated with the United States. The controversial campaign was called America in Your Hands and was run from May 23rd to November of 2016. On May 19th, 2004, a boa constrictor triggered a 15-minute nationwide blackout in Honduras when it got itself trapped between two enormous generation units. The boa was electrocuted, and the resulting short circuit caused the emergency system to shut down the entire plant, which shut down the country's electricity. In 1992, locals from Zernikow, Germany, discovered a 100-tree swastika during an aerial survey. The swastika was made up of a group of larch trees only visible from the air and was almost 19 square meters. In autumn, the yellowing trees stand out against the surrounding evergreens. Nobody knows who planted these trees, but it is known that it was created during Hitler's peak in the 1930s. The world's largest pool is in the seaside resort of San Alfonso del Mar in Chile. It was built in 2006 and is 35 meters deep and is filled with, get this, 249 million liters of water. Scientists at Duke University have developed a device that allows monkeys to control robotic wheelchairs by sending signals with their brains. They're hoping that one day it will help people with disabilities. Chiea, Taiwan built a 17-meter glass structure shaped like a giant high-heel shoe. It's used as a wedding hall and a tourist attraction. It was built in honor of women who suffered from arsenic poisoning from well water that caused gangrene, a condition sometimes known as black feet disease. 36-year-old Wang Ziyu is a Chinese hairstylist trained in the art of Kung Fu. He cuts hair while standing on his head. Not only does the Earth spin on its axis, it also moves around the sun at a speed of about 107,800 kilometers an hour. That's real fast. In 1984, Jack LaLanne, sometimes referred to as the godfather of fitness, towed 70 rowboats with passengers in them from Queensway Bridge to the ship Queen Mary while shackled, handcuffed, and fighting winds and currents. And he did this on his 70th birthday. I suddenly feel the need to go to the gym. The pacu fish, native to South America, was found in New Jersey in June of 2015. It's a relative of the flesh-eating piranha and is known for its distinctive teeth, which bear an eerie resemblance to human teeth. Luckily, the pacu fish is not going to bite your face off because it primarily eats plants and is considered mostly harmless to humans. Mostly. If your name is Isabella, you get a free lifetime admission to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. How exciting. United Kingdom-based horticulture company Thomson & Morgan has developed a plant that grows both cherry tomatoes and potatoes. It was developed in Canada and has been called the ketchup and fries plant and can be bought in Canadian Costco retailers and even in some independent garden centers. Some children in southwest China between the ages of 6 and 15 have to scale a cliff about 800 meters high multiple times a month in order to get to their school. The school, located in Attular Village, takes about 90 minutes to get to. Yeah, catching the bus in the morning doesn't sound so bad now, does it? Cincinnati surgeon Dr. Henry Heimlich, the man credited for developing the Heimlich maneuver, actually used it himself for the first time in his life on May 26, 2016. He saved a woman that was choking at a senior center. He was 96 years old. There is a species of orchid that only grows at high elevations in certain mountainous areas of Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru that looks just like a monkey. In 1972, Curtis King built his son a spaceship house in the woods near Signal Mountain, Tennessee, where they live. It has a drop-down staircase and every detail channels futuristic living, and it even cost $250,000 to build. And it's no joke, it has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a full bar, even though I don't understand why his young son would need that, and an entertainment area. He eventually sold the house and it can now be rented for a futuristic vacation. Researchers at Norway Norway's University of Bergen have found a link between being addicted to work and anxiety. They looked at more than 16,000 workers across the country and found that nearly 8% of workaholics were more likely to suffer from ADHD, OCD, depression, and anxiety. They also found that people who work more than 55 hours per week were at a higher risk of heart attack and stroke. Believe it or not, Nintendo was originally a playing card company, founded in late 1889. It was based in Kyoto, Japan, and produced and marketed a game called Hanafuda. In fact, Nintendo continues to manufacture playing cards in Japan and even organizes its own tournament called the Nintendo Cup. According to a study done in 2002 by Daphne Soares from the University of Maryland, an American alligator can orient themselves to the ripples created by a single drop of water even in complete darkness. This is because their faces and bodies are covered with tiny bumps that are far more sensitive than our own fingertips. In May of 2016, President Barack Obama became the first active president to visit the Japanese city of Hiroshima since the bombing 71 years ago. Happy hour has been illegal in the Republic of Ireland since 2003 under the Intoxicating Liquor Act. Pogmahon. In 2006, a flight from Washington to Dallas was forced to land in Nashville because passengers could smell burning matches. As it turns out, a woman with a medical condition was lighting matches to cover her own body odor. In case you didn't know, lighting matches on a plane is super illegal. Candace Payne, a Dallas mother of 2, broke the Facebook Live video record as the most watched video on the platform ever. She shared a live video of herself in a Chewbacca mask, laughing hysterically at the voice the mask makes. And you've probably seen this video because as of the time of this recording, the video has gained over 164 million views and has been shared almost 3.4 million times. Rodents are incapable of vomiting. That's something you needed to know. Really though, they can't puke because of anatomical constraints. In other words, they simply aren't built with the ability to. In 1848, an ice jam up the river from Niagara Falls caused the falls to stay bone dry for nearly 48 hours. Some people actually took it as a sign that the world was ending and attended special services at local churches. Normally, it has the highest flow rate of any waterfall in the world and provides 4.4 gigawatts of energy to the region. In 2008, Burger King introduced a new product for the Christmas season called Flame, a meat-scented cologne for meat-loving men. It was promoted as the scent of seduction with a hint of flame-broiled meat. Nope.